Hello and Happy New Year! It's Christy, your friendly digital technology librarian, and I'm going to go ahead and kick off our 2021 with a brand new Film Rec Friday. This week, though, we are actually going to take a look back at the year that was. Every release today that's going to be featured was released in 2020 and is available as always totally for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card, and they're going to be available on two of our three video services. The two services we're going to be talking about today are Hoopla Digital and Kanopy. As always, we also have CleveNet's Overdrive available, but due to the fact that they didn't have too many 2020 releases, we're going to just focus on the other two that I have mentioned. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get things rolling. So please, if you're interested, stay tuned, and hopefully you are going to find a phenomenal recommendation for you to check out this weekend. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started with a series of Hoopla digital recommendations, and the first of those is for Miss Fisher and the Crypt of Tears, which is one of the best titles. I absolutely love it. If you're not already familiar with Miss Fisher is from a TV series entitled Miss Fisher Murder Mysteries, and this series focuses on Fryn Fisher, who is this glamorous 1920s private detective. She is, of course, moneyed and sophisticated and beautiful, but she's also a woman living in an era where women are definitely not detectives very often, if ever. She is smart and savvy and strong and interesting and funny, and I absolutely love her. I was a huge fan of the TV series, which is also available on Hoopla Digital, by the way. So I was wonderfully excited when I found out that the movie continuation was going to be available on Hoopla as well. Let me also say that if you have not watched the TV series, you absolutely can still enjoy Miss Fisher and the Crypt of Tears. It's one of those continuations that does not rely on a huge amount of backstory. There's plenty of meat in this movie for you to sink your teeth into. And the backstory of these characters is not so vital that you'll be lost. It absolutely isn't. So even if you're not familiar with the TV series, please check this out. Anyway, in The Crypt of Tears, Miss Fisher is no longer just relegated to her homeland of Australia. She has gone global, and this particular story takes place in 1929 Jerusalem. She is rescuing this young Bedouin girl from, I believe, a kidnapping, but come to find out there's much more going on. She is about to be told more information about this girl when her informant is suddenly shot, and of course, she needs to get to the bottom of the rest of whatever is happening. She, of course, brings in Jack Robinson, who is one of her compatriots back in Australia, and they end up on this epic adventure for priceless treasures and wartime secrets, and it's just this fantastic, very period mystery with the sweeping romance of the time period and the setting, and it's just so much fun, as is all of Fryn Fisher and her entire world. The series is also very fun and exciting, and that all carries over into the movie. So if you are looking for something that is just thoroughly enjoyable, this is one of those kinds of movies that you leave feeling good having watched. So please do check out Miss Fisher and the Crypt of Tears if you enjoy murder mysteries, if you like strong female characters, if you like period pieces, that 1920s super glamorous Gatsby-esque era. This is one to watch. So check out Miss Fisher and the Crypt of Tears. You won't regret it. Now, my second recommendation from Hoopla Digital is for a film that I was incredibly excited to get to watch. Many of you who've tuned in before have heard me talk about the movie Train to Busan. Train to Busan was released in 2016. It's probably my absolute favorite zombie movie of all time. Um, it has heart, it has scares, it has drama, it has phenomenal acting, and it just is one of those movies that you will always have a strong emotional reaction to, no matter how many times you see it. Now, that's how I felt about Train to Busan. Now, Train to Busan Peninsula, I will say up front, is not as strong as the original Train to Busan. But here's the thing. I was never expecting it to be. It was going to be almost impossible to match the first movie, let alone surpass it. So I went into this looking for something that was an excellent zombie film, and that is precisely what I got. Train to Busan Peninsula takes place about 4 years after the original storyline. So we're dealing with a South Korea that is absolutely infested with zombies. The only people left are the survivors, and just like in a lot of these zombie survival films and TV series, you know, you have to be a certain kind of person to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. So that's your baseline right there. The survivors are going to be those kinds of people. Now, Peninsula in particular centers around a team of people who are not from this zombie infested area, that are made to go in to South Korea to retrieve an item, and then they have to retrieve this item and then get out and survive. Very simple, basic storyline that gets so incredibly complicated when this team of people ends up meeting a group of survivors. Not all survivors are good, obviously, and not all survivors are going to be bad. You're going to find a mix of people. And, you know, that tends to be a trope within these post-apocalyptic zombie films and series. And this one is very much follows that formula. What is more dangerous, the horde of zombies that you're facing, or the people who manage to survive that horde of zombies? And you know, these movies are all about sort of weaving your way through those kinds of characters. um, you know, the survivors are always so complex and so interesting, and Peninsula does a fantastic job of making those survivors fascinating. There are characters of multiple ages that you grow attached to, from children to seniors, and you know, they're all so multi-layered, and you get all of that in a very short amount of time. So if you are looking for a complex yet thoroughly exciting zombie film, check out Train to Busan Peninsula. Again, this is one of those sort of continued stories that you 100% do not have to watch the original for, though I strongly recommend that you do. Train to Busan, like I mentioned, is my absolute favorite zombie movie. And Train to Busan Peninsula does an excellent job of continuing this storyline in this particular universe. So again, please check it out. If you enjoy zombies, horror films, action movies, there's a ton of action in this. So make sure you check it out. Available on Hoopla Digital. Now, my third Hoopla recommendation is for a film called The Sunlit Night. And this movie came out of nowhere for me. It is small and independent, but so big in a lot of ways. It's really charming, and a lot of the storyline and the characters really stayed with me long after I finished the movie. It is from Jenny Slate, and it's just really wonderful. It's definitely one of those films that you feel good watching. Now, Slate's character is this aspiring painter who lives in New York City, but she struggles, and New York has sort of lost the romance for her. That whole idea of being an artist in the city, and it's just lost its appeal. And she ends up in this far flung Norwegian town, acting as an assistant to this curmudgeonly, perpetually grouchy Scandinavian artist, and that's all in hopes that this different setting, this different sort of pattern to her daily life will jumpstart something in her artistic self. While she's in this incredibly remote village, where her primary job is to paint a barn yellow, by the way, um, she meets this ridiculous, wonderful cast of characters. Zach Galifianakis is playing this sort of Viking obsessed American who has also traveled to this tiny, remote Nordic village, and is sort of trying to immerse himself in Viking culture. He's, as usual, playing someone utterly ridiculous, but at the same time, this utterly ridiculous character is really likable and really enjoyable, and you definitely grow attached to him. She also, develops a real relationship with the artist that she's working for, and she does discover a lot of things about herself in this far-flung journey that she goes on. Again, this is one of those very small films that feels so much larger when you watch it. Um, I went in with like no expectations whatsoever. I've enjoyed other projects that Jenny has worked on in the past, and I've always enjoyed them. But this one in particular really, really just sort of struck a chord with me. And I think anyone who is looking for a movie that sort of urges you into some self-reflection should check this out. Again, Sunlit Night. It's a lovely, small, moving movie, so check that one out as well. Now, my last film recommendation from Hoopla Digital is a documentary called She is the Ocean. Now, She is the Ocean is, as you might guess, all about the ocean, but even more so about the lives of 9 incredible women whose lives are strongly tied to the ocean. And these 9 women are from all over the globe. This film in particular explores these women's lives, what draws them to the water, and these ladies are utterly fascinating. They are marine biologists, they are surfers, they are icons, they are divers. They come from all walks of life, and each one of them has a very compelling story. I was not expecting to be as affected by this film as I ended up being. I mean, as we learn about these, they're not characters, they're real people, but as we learn about them, we definitely feel every moment of their journeys. I certainly didn't go into it expecting to cry crazy hard for some of the stories, and I absolutely did. There are some stories in here that will prompt like sympathetic tears, that will prompt tears of devastation, that will, you know, make you root for their successes and their losses as well. I mean, I love documentaries, but it's seldom that I watch a documentary where I feel like I'm watching a fictional story unfold. you usually go into a true a documentary where it's where you're just seeing truth exposed as in a different way than you would say a traditional film about a fictional story, you know, like you don't necessarily know where something's going. And with documentaries you usually know the trajectory of the film, and that's just not the case with this. I had such a good time watching this. I really do strongly recommend it for anyone who is interested in um, stories about uh, strong intelligent women, who is interested in um, a story about environmental consciousness, anyone who is looking for something that is a little off the beaten path. She is the Ocean is absolutely the film for you. It is an extremely solid documentary and one that I think everyone should check out. So please do watch She is the Ocean, my last recommendation from Hoopla Digital. Okay, our second set of recommendations all come from our Kanopy service, and the first of those recommendations is for a movie I absolutely adored. It is called Lucky Grandma, and it is fantastic. Lucky Grandma is a Chinese language film, English subtitles, but even if you're not a big subtitle fan, you absolutely need to see this movie. It is so fantastic. It is the blackest of comedies, and it's just an extraordinary, extraordinary story. So, Lucky Grandma takes place in the heart of New York's Chinatown and follows this ridiculous, chain smoking Chinese grandma, played by the fantastic Sai Chin, who was the first um, bondwoman of Asian descent. She was, I believe, in You'll Never Live Twice. I don't even know if she got billing for it because it was quite a small role, but you will 100% remember her if you are a Bond fan. Anyway, Sai Chin plays this 80-year-old chain smoking Chinese grandma, and she is, you know, fiercely independent, still, you know, savvy, still absolutely capable of being on her own, despite all of the worries of her family. And, you know, this one day she goes to have her fortune told, and she is told that she's going to have this ridiculously auspicious day at some point in the near future. Going off of this fortune, she decides to go to her local casino and just go all in, right? So that seems like a logical plan. And she ends up on the wrong side of this vicious Chinese gang. Rather than, you know, going to the authorities, whether it be outside of Chinatown or not, she chooses instead to hire a personal bodyguard from a rival Chinese gang and somehow manages to land herself in the midst of this massive gang war. I mean, it's so ridiculous and so much fun. Like this movie is so fun. I can't, like, there's no better word to describe it. Like, I laughed out loud so many times, even at times when it probably was not appropriate for me to find it funny. I absolutely found it hilarious. This was it would just the situation is so ludicrous and so perfect for this character that they've built. I mean, from the first scenes, you know she's going to be absolutely out there. This marvelous character that Sai Chin plays, and she really just is. And you can tell that Chin is thoroughly enjoying herself playing the character because the character is so, like, I mean, she's just so real. And for a character that's as ludicrous as this to feel real, you know that the actor is just like living her best life. Um, anyway, uh, the story definitely does touch on real immigrant experience. In addition to being, in this utterly ludicrous situation, you do get these little pockets of very serious reality. Like, and I find that the melding of those two things, this almost surreal situation with all of the realistic moments, I find that melding so fascinating and so gripping. It really just was such an excellent, excellent movie. Um, if you have any interest in black comedy to begin with, this is something to watch. If you are looking for, caper isn't the right word, but complex movies with a lot of moving parts, uh, that the plot sort of hinges on. If you're looking for really interesting characters, that's the key point here. Lucky Grandma is something I think everybody interested in character driven films should watch. The main character, really is the heart of this story. I mean, Lucky Grandma is the one to watch it for. So again, please check out Lucky Grandma, available on Kanopy. It is a fantastic movie. It is not to be missed. My second recommendation from Kanopy is for a uh, amazing documentary called Gather. Now, Gather sort of follows, slow food isn't the right term, but it follows the stories of many individual Native Americans who are working to sort of reconnect both spiritually and culturally with their um, tribal identities. And they're doing it in a lot of ways, primarily through food. And one, I'm just always fascinated by cultural connection to food to begin with. Um, Regardless of what culture you're talking about. It could be Native American, it could be Chinese or Japanese, it could be German, it could be Russian. And those cultures' connections to food, it's so tightly ingrained, and this documentary does such a phenomenal job of showing how incredibly integral the food system was to these people and to the culture of those of the past. Um, in Gather, you're going to be following indigenous chefs who are struggling to figure out ways to create these um, historic dishes that followed their tribes, even though the food supply is shifting so much, and how they are trying to go back to the way of producing these particular food chains, because those were absolutely vital to providing the ingredients for those dishes. You follow a couple uh, of young men who are working really hard to repopulate salmon streams with the vital kinds of salmon that have almost died out completely over the years, that were at the time uh, integral to a tribe's survival. We're talking about people who are mixing current culinary wisdom with older practices in order to, reclaim different elements from their tribe's past. And, in addition to just being interesting on, a cultural level, it's fascinating on a human level. Like, it really calls out to us and asks us why these connections to our past are so important. And you absolutely feel for every single person who is talked about in this documentary, as well as all of the voices that we don't get to hear. um And it's an amazing way to approach history, and such an integral part of this country's history too. I think that we should all check out Gather. It's an amazing documentary to begin with, just from a film standpoint. But if you happen to be interested in cultural histories, if you are interested in food, if you are interested in the study of food history in particular, Gather is absolutely a movie that you definitely want to check out. So please do, available on Kanopy. My next film recommendation is for a movie called The Assistant. Now, to say I enjoyed The Assistant is a is not necessarily the way I want to put it. This movie is so challenging. Um, it follows a young woman who is, working this entry level position at this huge entertainment company. And it's her dream job, right? She's wanted this kind of job for forever. But as she's working in this industry at this particular level, she's seeing so much that is just, it's not right. And she knows it's not right, and you feel this tension while you're watching the movie, and as it goes on, you feel more and more of the wrongness of things, just the way other characters are behaving, and nothing is over the top. Everything is pretty subtle for the most part, like just everyday behavior patterns. um, for example, there's this one scene where, and this is in the trailer, so you know, I'm not spoiling anything, where she goes to speak with a human resources director. And when she asks if anything can be done, the the human resources representative is just like, about what? And she's clearly just described a really not okay situation. um, it's it's a tense movie about a situation that could happen in anybody's life, in any industry, to someone of any age. I think that this movie is one that you definitely should check out, um, just because it's like that saying, a thousand tiny cuts. um, it really is, it's like the film embodiment of that idea that the thousand cuts that you receive are worse, become worse over time than just one quick blade movement kind of situation. um I believe that this was a film festival movie. It was at like a ton of, I think that went to Sundance. It might have even gone to Cannes. I know it was at the Berlin International Film Festival. um and it's been critically acclaimed all over the place. But I'd never seen it until I was watching films for this week. And like I said, while it's difficult to say I enjoyed it, it's definitely a film I'm very glad that I watched, because the acting is excellent, the storyline is incredibly gripping, and for a film that's not full of action or explosions, you're so tense and on the edge of your seat about what's going to happen next that it definitely feels suspenseful. So if you are interested in a movie that will definitely make you feel tense, that will absolutely make you engrossed and will keep you feeling that way throughout, please do check out The Assistant. Now, my final recommendation for this week is for a movie called Ordinary Love. And this one is another one of those quiet movies that just sort of crept up on me. Now, Ordinary Love stars Liam Neeson and Leslie Manville, and they're this lovely couple, Joan and Tom. They've been married for years and years and years. They have a routine. They are lovely and funny and charming, and then Joan is diagnosed with breast cancer. And their world falls apart, and it feels so real. Like that's the thing with this movie in particular. The beats are so real, like the actual devastation you feel, the reaction of the people around you, and the way a relationship changes when you're dealing with this sort of a situation. Like I said, these two characters had a routine, and a loving routine. Like it's not like they had drifted apart. There's none of that kind of drama in this story. um it's really about a regular couple and what happens when they're forced to face a cancer diagnosis. And that reality is sometimes hard to watch, but is also like ultimately like a really beautiful, motivating story. Um, you know, the two of them do such a fantastic job together. Their chemistry is off the charts. Like you can tell, like this is a couple that obviously love each other, but they're friends too. I mean, like it feels very organic, this relationship that has built and developed over so many decades. Now, through the course of her treatment, we see like these very realistic ebbs and flows of the relationship and the way that they cope both individually and as a couple, and how they both have to figure out how to take care of one another. She might be the one who's ill, but he's falling apart too. It's just really beautiful. Like it was one of those movies that I just felt so moved by, and due in part to the fact that the acting is so strong. I mean, really, the acting is so strong in this. But just the situation in general, it's impossible not to feel moved by these characters and by this particular story, because it's a story that can happen to any of us. Um, so if you're looking for a film that chronicles the year in the life of a longtime couple, if you're looking for a story about a couple surviving a chronic a serious illness, if you are looking for a story that will tug at your heart and that will make you laugh and that will make you cry, definitely check out Ordinary Love. It is absolutely fantastic. So, as I mentioned, that is my last recommendation for this week. As always, if you have any recommendations for films that you've seen in this last year, it doesn't matter if it was released in 2020 or if it's just that you watched it in 2020, please do comment below and recommend it so that others can check it out this weekend if they get the chance. If you have any recommendations for me and themes that you would like to see covered in the future, absolutely include those in your comments. I love to hear from other movie lovers. Talking about movies is one of my favorite things in the world, so please do feel free to chat back and forth with me. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for this week. I hope that some of these recommendations appeal to you. If they don't, please, please, please still check out Hoopla Digital and Kanopy. There are literally thousands and thousands of movies available and TV series. So they're all free to those of you who have a Milan-Berlin library card. So there's absolutely no reason not to check out these services. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye for this week, and I will see you again sometime soon. Bye-bye.